Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where our purpose is to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve your organisation sustainably. Learn how to achieve and sustain an excellence journey for yourself, others, and the planet.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet.
Welcome to episode 117 of the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Mr. Joe Krebs on the show with us today. Joe is the founder of INCREMENTOR, an agile consultancy specialising in agile transformations using Scrum, Kanban, Lean, and extreme programming. Today we are exploring with Joe Agile Kata, a topic linking two areas of excellence that Joe is renowned for. Let's get into the episode. Joe, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Brad, for having me. Much appreciated. I looked at the previous guest here. It's an honor to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Oh, Joe, as you and I were talking before the show, Deandra Wardell linked us, and I saw your background in Agile and Kata and everything else you do, and I was like, wow, there's going to be a great conversation, mate. I'm really looking forward to it. Joe, what's your backstory? Mate, what led you down this path to be linking two of the best practices in my mind anyway, where it comes to that agile background, but also then blending in Kata?
How far back can we go?
Oh, mate, as far as you can, Joe. Like, I think for us, it's really helping listeners understand that journey you've been on to get to what you're doing now.
Well, so one of the big moments I had in my career, and I think that's where the Agile Kata piece comes in, was when I was exposed to initial Scrum. I think it was like 2002. I participated in a training with Jeff Sullivan in a back room in Boston, and it was like this new thing, and so I got exposed to that, and that really drove my energy. I couldn't stop reading about this topic. I remember that it was like there was something to it that really I got addicted to this, and I looked at things from then on always a little bit differently. And then obviously I stayed in the Agile community. The Agile Manifesto was released. Scrum matured over time, so I became Scrum trainer, certifications, and all these kind of things. But then what was interesting was we were then approaching a new moment where we said, like, well, it's not so much about introducing an agile process to a single team. It's like, how do we go across an entire organization? How do we create business agility? So that was like maybe in the 2017 range or so. And I have to say, I got really stuck with my company, INCREMENTOR, with clients of helping them through an agile transformation, which was really a hot topic. Right? How do I take a company and do more of agility? And so we tried various kind of things, and we tried Scrum to roll out Scrum, for example, right? So as a process to roll out Scrum, we wanted to use Scrum, but it didn't really work, I have to be honest. So there were certain shortcomings to these things that just didn't really apply to what we tried to do. So we researched, and then, I came across the Kata work, and that was another moment, just like when I started learning Scrum. It's like there is something to this. And I think there has to be a bridge between Agile and Kata, because Kata is a great process for introducing change within an organization. And what we're trying to change is Agile. So I put these two things together, gave it a name. And that's the Agile Kata.
Yeah, Joe, that's brilliant. And as you're talking, I can relate to it so much. You know, when I first read Toyota Kata by Mike Rother, it was such an eye-opener, because all of a sudden it cut away from the tools and techniques to really culture. You know what I mean? Like, he distilled it so well. And like Jeff Leica refers to that book, and Jeff was part of that book, but it's just amazing, really, isn't it? What really hit home for you when you first got across Kata after with having that big agile background? Because I was a lean background, as you and I were talking about.
That's right. But what's interesting was the simplicity of the steps that were very intriguing. I was looking at it and saying, it can't be that easy, right, in terms of the steps. obviously there's a lot to it, right? It's not, the steps are simple, and we probably can talk about these steps on this podcast. There's obviously a lot to it in addition to that, but the pattern itself is pretty straightforward, and there's things you need to know about it to run it effectively, right? But it's pretty straightforward to explain. So that was one of the intriguing pieces. The other thing was, it was going very well with cultural change within an organization, right? So the sprint rhythm, like the iterations, like the 2-week time boxes, they don't really fit very well with cultural change within an organization. So that rhythm, which is great for building products, is not necessarily something you can, map into business agility. So that flexibility of saying we're going to work in short steps, which is obviously something we want to do, however, not necessarily rhythmic. That was another intriguing thing. So, and that's where my journey started. It's like, wow, there is something to it, and I want to use it.
Yeah, that's interesting, Joe. You're saying that time box or that sprint cycle becomes that step rather than that time box. So that's awesome. That's awesome. There's an insight already. Joe, who, mate, just before we go into Agile Kata, which I'm keen to explore, like, who are some of the people that inspired you through your journey? Like, you've been involved in this from the infancy of, Scrum and Agile coming through and then blending into the Kata. Who are some of the people that inspired you along that journey?
Well, one of them was on your show is Jeff Sutherland, obviously, somebody who trained me first. I worked then later. We offered courses, right? He came to New York. There's Ken Schwaber with Scrum.org, both creators. And, I myself, I'm a certified trainer for that organization. But there's also people like Richard Sheridan, who wrote Joy Inc., for example, wonderful book. And he's always been a friend on since then on, and we meet at conferences, and he just sets the stage for really good leadership. He doesn't really use the word agile so much, but it resonates very, very well with the agile community. Anything where freedom at work and organizational change is being discussed are always hot topics on myself. But those are very influential people in my path. And then there's also Linda Rising, who writes a lot about patterns. And if you want to see it this way, the Kata is a pattern. So it's the application of a pattern, which the repetition of the movement, which proves right over time, right? And that is the confidence that people are getting by implementing a Kata is just tremendous.
Yeah, I'm watching my boy Charlie learn karate at the moment, and the way they break that into Kata routines is brilliant. It just builds that comfort and confidence. Because it's awesome. Bite-sized chunks, isn't it? It's bite-sized chunks that you can actually swallow. And he's anxious to go for his yellow belt right now. So we'll see his early days. Joe, with Agile Kata, do you mind explaining the connection there and what you've discovered and some of the key insights you've got there on now that topic of Agile Kata that you've created and you're working forward with?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I have to say that the Agile Kata is something, when we created it, which was actually initially thought to be like a tool for us as a consulting company to work with clients in Agile transformations. In March 2022, we made it available as a share-alike license via agilekata.org. That step we took because we just feel like we want to give it to the community and just say, like, here's something to think about. Every time you're thinking about an agile transformation, you should be considering that. So this is not a homegrown, kept secret kind of approach. We are looking for people around the world to feel free to grab the Agile Kata, try it themselves, or if they need help, they can always reach out to us. But there shouldn't be a direct link between us and the Kata. So the Kata itself is freely available for everyone. So we invite everybody to go to that website and read up on the white paper. We have people now on volunteer basis, they translate into different languages. So this is really interesting to see the dynamics. And I hope that the site and everything will be taken over by some form of a community at some point. So it's out of my hands. That's really what I'm trying to do. The Kata itself is very special because the small steps you just mentioned, right? So working in these small steps, That is a key thing for us in an agile transformation. We see, and this is the tragic piece in agile transformation, is that we see so many organizations that are planning a transformation towards agility in a waterfall way. I know this sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at these plans, there are these waves of training, then coaching, then modeling, and then hiring. It's like these big waves. It's like how they're planning their agile transformation. And obviously, there had to be a better way. We didn't want to go down that path. It's like, what do we learn and continuously improve? So the kata resonates very well with these basic steps. Do you want me to walk through those 4 steps quick?
Yeah, Joe. And Joe, on that, I just want to add an insight on that. That's so brilliant, because earlier on, you and I were talking about that. You know, you got the time block sprint, which is like, in a way, doing the wave release. And I've seen a lot of wave release on transformations.
Right.
You're time boxing and you're forcing people to a time box on that. But have they learnt the kata properly within that time box? Whereas you made that insight to me earlier on, which was, no, Brad, the box is learning the kata. And that is brilliant. So,
yeah.
You know,
I thought
it's
that was
like, it's like you're treating a transformation like me watching Charlie learn karate. You know, you're helping them go through the katas and build up skills, and it's not necessarily a time box, because
that's right.
The goal is to hit the short-term goal of learning that kata. Yeah, that is brilliant, Joe. Do you mind going through those 4 steps? Sorry.
Yeah, so absolutely. The 4 steps. Sometimes there's a 5th step about a long-term vision, right? You could add to that, but the main 4 steps are really that you have a challenge, a direction, right? So that would be your first step. You would be looking at, what is our goal? Maybe, could be 6, 9, 12 months out. Obviously, that is a blurry goal, but it's something we want to achieve, and it's in reach, right? And something we want to do. And then you would, and this is already a very different step at that point once you have that. And a lot of companies might have that step. They say, oh, we have a vision, we have something, right? But then comes the first step of the kata when it takes over, and that is really assessing your current condition. So when you're assessing your current condition, you're actually looking at yourself and you're saying, like, where are we? Like, for example, in an agile transformation, right? Where are we right now? And there are some facts. It's like, how do I measure that? There's a lot of organizations, they step over that. They say, like, we already know we want to go agile. So why would we look at that where we are right now? Why would we spend time on that? But the problem is, if you skip over that, you have no reference point, right? So you don't know where you were initially and where you're coming from. And if you don't have that, you can actually go to the 3rd step, which is, what's my next small step I can take? And that next small step could be a week or 2. So we're talking about very short timelines here at this point and very small goals. And in between reaching this and where we are right now is a ton of experiments. And that is step 4. So we're basically saying, in a very self-managed way, we're saying, like, hey, team, here's our next target condition. That's what we're trying to achieve in X amount of days, right? There's no time box, but we could say, like, roughly a week or 2 is this goal away. Experiment around it. So we are hoping for a self-organized, self-managed team that is then taking this goal and says, like, we are here, we want to go there. Let's experiment. Let's do some trial and error kind of thing. And the sooner we are reaching that, obviously the sooner we have achieved our target condition, and then we're planning for the next until we reach the direction. So very simple stepping sequence, right? Yeah. But obviously each of those steps requires skills and techniques to organize, to facilitate, etc.
Yeah, Joe, the old saying, it's simple but not easy.
That's right. Simple to explain, right?
Yeah, I love it, but I love it. Joe, so
right. I mean, if I just want to add one thing to that,
please.
Second step is where we're assessing the current condition. That is also something where we knew we were on a path onto something, because that moment makes the kata so universally and flexible. So we had customers that said, oh, we already started with an agile transformation. That is already in full swing, right? And the kata can always step in because you're assessing the current conditions. So the kata does not require, like in a traditional waterfall approach, like you to start here and end over here. The kata says, I'll pick you up where you are, right? So even if you have tried this for 2 years and there is some knowledge there, we'll pick up there. So your current condition is already advanced, but it doesn't mean that you can't do kata. So the pattern, the movement, karate, as you said, that's exactly where it starts, right? So some come in a little bit more on an advanced level. Some start from scratch. The kata can accommodate all.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And it's so reassuring for an organization, isn't it? Because there's typically one common goal, which is they do want to move forward. You know, we need to move forward in organizations, don't we? Or else, you know, we mightn't be about anymore. Joe, do you mind if we step through this a little bit? Like, Joe, what with step one, you know, the challenge, the direction, the goal, what do you find that looks like? Like, is there an example you can talk to and some key elements of that you'd recommend to our listeners to think about?
So I'm always using examples from like outside of IT or somebody, so everybody can relate to, like, for example, playing the game of tennis or something like that, right? So let's say you have no tennis skills, but you want to become a tennis player to play with your friends on a leisurely kind of level. So your direction, that would be a direction. So you would be going out there and say, like, that's my goal. I have some friends that they can hit the ball and I want to play with them leisurely. You know, obviously you could also have bigger goals and go professional, but let's just stay a little bit more on a smaller scale. So that would be my reaching the beginner level of tennis. You would assess the current conditions. Like, I don't even know how to hold a racket right now, right? I don't know anything, right? And what would be my next target condition? And so basically what we then could drive from there is basically saying, like, I can do successfully 10 hits with a forehand over the net or something like that, may land on the other side in the area. That's about it. And then from then on we build. We're not gonna come on the field and we start forehand, backhand, serve, and volleys and all these kind of things, right? We start small. We're gonna do one routine. We're practicing that, and that's the same on an organizational level. So we're mapping the steps from what we just saw in the kata routine to anything. In this particular case, it was tennis. Now, we don't want to play tennis in an organization. We want to do transformation, but the change is really the same, right? Yeah. So when you look at that, it's the same routine. You start somewhere. Your goal is very lofty. You want to do an agile transformation. Like, that is a huge undertaking, right? And where to start? It's like, first you have to assess where you are. You know, can I play? Do I have any knowledge what is going on in our organization? And then building some small goals. There are challenges to do that, even to break a large scale effort and undertaking down into small steps.
Yeah, that's great. And Joe, you know, within an organization, when you're starting to work with them around that challenging direction and goal, what level in the organization do you find is really effective at working on that? Is it any level? Do you find the most senior you can get to, the better? What advice would you have there?
You mean on the Agile Kata, when the Agile Kata is being implemented within an organization?
Yeah, you've got an organization that wants to do Agile Kata, and you're at step one and talking about that goal, challenging goal.
Yeah. Well, so the interesting thing is, if I can just step back for 1 second, because the kata, which we just talked about, the steps, they're really very identical to the ones that are described in Rother's work, right, about the kata. So those are the steps. These are the stepping sequence. That is the engine of the Agile Kata. So we're using the Toyota Kata as an engine to drive our Agile Kata, because that is so powerful. It's proven. It's working. There's a lot of success stories. There's training material. There's a lot of stuff there. So we want to tap into that, all that wisdom, and use that. But because we don't want to play tennis, or we don't want to do certain other activities within our organization, we want to use the Agile Kata specifically for agile work. So we want to increase business agility. So for that reason, we are safeguarding, so to speak, the kata with, and we call it shell of typical things we would be doing so that the transformation is agile. So for example, the leadership team, and this is now coming to your question, right? The leadership team needs to be informed. They would need to know we're doing a kata, somebody's going to execute the kata, but we need the leadership support to do that. We also need leadership to adjust their behavior, right? So if we're talking about self-managed teams building products, we need a leadership style that accommodates that, right? So I cannot have command and control hierarchies in organizations telling teams what to do, and I want to create a culture of teams being self-managed. So that's a mismatch. So I need them in two ways. I need them, A, to support the Agile Kata, be a participant, be somebody that sponsors the efforts, but also I need leadership to actually work with coaches within an organization to actually adjust to what we're trying to achieve. So that would be for my leadership. So I think that would be a very important audience. Another audience would be Agile coaches. We would ask them to be able to be fluent in Agile Kata and actually execute Kata. So we're providing trainings for that, so people can join a training course, learn about Agile Kata. We have boot camps, so we're trying to help organizations to come in and implement a Kata by themselves. They practice it and they see how it feels. You can't do any damage with it, right? But you can see how it feels and if this is a good cultural fit for what you're trying to do. So Agile coaches, sometimes there's a role called Scrum Masters. Some of your listeners might have heard Scrum Masters would also be interested as they are promoting organizational change. So these would be like the huge audiences. And that would be like from an implementations perspective. Now, the other thing is business agility is not only to bring Agile to every part of the organization. So the goal is not necessarily, they can certainly do that, to do Scrum or something like that within a marketing team. That's okay if they see value in that. But the real business agility comes in when departments actually work together very well.
Yeah.
That's what we see as business agility. So if marketing and sales and procurement are in sync and they follow the Agile principles, that's what we're going for. So the audience of an Agile Kata could also include people from groups like that, like procurement, finance, a lot of HR too, because it's cultural change. HR would be very interested. Yes.
Yeah, John, I get the sense from that chat there that the challenging direction and goal, it's important to involve leadership and the different levels, but that when you're going on to assess the current condition and start the Kata, it may be slightly different at the different levels. Like you're mentioning with the senior leadership, their Kata could be around leadership behavior and systems of the organization, whereas in a team of sales and marketing, the Kata could be about progressing their maturity forward that step in actually, in an agile transformation in that regard. That's really insightful.
Yeah, you can have multiple katas. Kata, there's actually no plural, right? Kata run in the organization at the very same time in different departments, but all, having one goal in mind, and that's agility, right? And that's the driver. That's our direction as agile. Yeah,
and they've got their different the goals align, but it can be different at the different levels to truly get that transformation achieved. Go to enterpriseexcellencepodcast.com to find links to the show notes and Joe's website and white papers on the Agile Kata. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast to help others gain insights and create a better future. Let's get back to the episode. Joe, what have you found works well for assessing the current condition? For a team actually setting a goal and go, right, we want to build agility, we want to have an agile transformation.
Right.
What systems have you found really help them assess where they're currently at? Because it can be quite a complex thing when you're talking culture and transformation.
Yeah. So one thing is that was actually one of our findings was back in the 2017s and so on was agile transformations. There were agile coaches in organizations. They were just, they had their personal agenda of what agility is. So we saw certain flavors of this, and there was no consistency. And the ironic thing is, there is actually something that drives the entire agile community, and that's the Agile Manifesto. Yeah. Right. So that's the irony of it. It's like, why are we not following the Agile Manifesto? That's what defines agile. So the Agile Kata connects the 12 principles of the Agile Manifesto with metrics. So we're using like frequency of releases, for example, like how often do we push products out? It's measurable, right? So we could measure that. How often are we doing this right now? And where would we like to be? So you can use these metric points and connect them with the Agile Manifesto. So it's not me, Joe Krebs, coming in and saying like, this is how I see agility should be based on my experience. It's actually like, yes, I can bring my experience in, but we're actually tracing all these 12 principles in our kata. And that applies to leadership, that applies to teams, that applies to HR, like wherever you would execute a kata, the 12 principles would be our guiding principles.
That's great. That's great. It's that central pillar, isn't it? In relation to it.
I need to reinvent the wheel, yeah.
Joe, I see a lot of organizations measuring transformations using like a rubric, a 1 to 5 maturity index that they create. Have you seen that used at all, or got any feedback on that when it comes to Agile Kata, where a company might go, right, okay, let's look at the 12 Agile Manifesto principles and go, well, what would it look like if we're just starting, right through to what would it look like if we're highly advanced?
So you mean like by assessing against those 12, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you could use like tools like spider diagrams, and you could use an interview style maybe, where you would go in and perform within an organization. You would be like having interviews with the party that is going through the kata. It was like, where are we? You would identify certain things, but we're also aware that some of business units might not be fully aware of the 12 principles. So that is really something an Agile coach would need to keep an eye on. This is like, I'm aware, I'm an Agile coach. I'm not just a coach, I'm an Agile coach. So I'm upholding the 12 principles of the manifesto and basically translating that into some form of interview questions that we can then assess. Most importantly is for us, though, that it's not done by an individual. So it's not like somebody stands there and assesses and for days in. This is something done in a workshop kind of style, where people are contributing and be honest with themselves and say, like, where are we currently in the following topics? And, sometimes this is a tough exercise when people look at it, it's like, we're really not agile whatsoever right now, but that's the point. We want to change that. And now it's time for the kata to take over.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good insight, Joe. Joe, with the transformation, so you've got a team, and maybe there's some different goals at different levels of the organization or in different teams for the transformation. They've assessed their current condition, maybe using measures, or maybe using like a maturity index or a facilitated event where they're exploring where they're at. What does the next step look like? And then moving into that fog, as Mike Rother put it, what does that look like for you as a company goes, okay, now let's set that next step? You mentioned like the short, like 1 to 2 weeks can be quite good. But what does that look like as they go in to go, right, set that next step and then execute into it?
Yeah, well, so I think we touched on that a little bit earlier, right? So when we're going through these waves, obviously we don't want to do these large waves, right? One of the things we always notice is the use of tools, for example, right? So using tools within an organization for that accommodate, let's say, an agile transformation. It's just something we see a lot. So I don't want to speak for everybody here right now, but it's just like a common pattern that somebody in procurement would say like, oh, if we are getting for our entire organization 70,000 licenses of this product, we can get a better rate in this way. So let's go big and let's get this license and we're going to roll out this product. And then sometimes there's people are out there, and depending on the tool, it's like, I just don't like this tool, right? I don't like to work this way. And obviously in an agile environment, we want to create an environment that people can flourish in. So now we have this top-down approach of let's roll out tooling to the entire organization, right? Just for that better rate on a license. But I'm not really making everybody happy. I might have some good coverage, but like, why don't we let people decide of what they want and how they would choose it and how they would use it? So a next goal could be just simply like to run an experiment on, or as a next goal, it's like, we're going to acquire the tool for a very small group of people, and we're going to learn something about the tool. And if somebody else wants this tool, we can also do that, right? Maybe down the road, we are accumulating enough seats that we can get a better rate on these licenses. Obviously, a very small example, but I think everybody can relate to that. And it's like, I've seen something like that where the entire organization got a wave of new tools rolled out. And but maybe somebody says, I'm not an expert in this tool, I don't like the tool, I've used something else. So we want to go in a very targeted approach for employees. We want to obviously create them or help them create an environment where they can be productive. So the next small step would be work with a team, have some form of experience come out of this, possibly a lunch and learn, showing what their findings were, and then move on to the next step and learn something else.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Joe, what's been your experience with organizations as they then move into that experiment? You know, they want to run that experiment around that new tool. And I guess I see a lot of organizations where it'll be just a do, they'll just do it. But it's not like they don't go through the plan, do, check, act cycle. Yes. It's just like, let's do it and let's move on to the next thing. But then everything behind you is falling down. Have you experienced that? Is there any advice you'd give for organizations to help them properly go through plan, do, check, act to make sure that things that they do to move forward actually stick?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So what we're noticing is that there's a lot of, once we have this target condition, right, that we're now planning how to get to that target condition. That's the interesting part. Very appealing in the Agile Kata is for teams to let go, to just basically say, like, you know what, we're not going to go in, we're going to have a self-managed team. We're going to pick this up. We're going to somehow work on this. And maybe 4 people from our team started working over there, and 5 people from the same team start working over there. And they bring in some interesting results. They might throw away their ideas and says it didn't work, let's try something else. But the idea is that they have full ownership over these experiments. That resonates very well with Agile teams. I actually think that in the Agile community, we are planning like it's sprints and stuff like that way too much. There's like, it's almost like every detail is being laid out. It's like we just need a goal, and that goal drives us. Now, the appealing thing of the kata is because of the lack of time box, I know we're reaching this next target condition if the experiment has succeeded. Yeah. So there's really there's a huge incentive for the teams to say, like, well, let's get these experiments successful. And I think that's awesome, right? For teams to say, like, we're done, it's over, we have accomplished that. It's regardless if it's 5 days, 7 days, or 9 days, we're going to push for something. So the pattern of a sprint is not going to hold us back.
Yeah, it's neat. And I do know, even in like with Jeff and a lot of the Scrum community now, they are saying, look, the ultimate thing is to hit the vision and the goal, you know, and I think in a way there's that blend coming in where it's starting to align, isn't it? That because ultimately you're moving forward to hit the vision and goal, not just pump out work, are you? Like the pumping out work is just crazy if it's not moving you towards your short-term vision and goal.
That's right.
Pumping out work absolutely. For the sake of pumping out work.
Yeah, and there's even a word for that, right? It's like zombie Scrum. They've been calling that, where teams just became robots and they just move through the motion of Scrum, but it's like it has no life anymore, right? And I feel the kata thinking and the Agile Kata in particular forces teams to be like that, right? So it could be a cultural change for some. Even right now, teams that would call themselves Agile team implementing an Agile Kata, they would say, wow, that there's a lot where, you know, it depends on self-managed teams. Very important. Yeah.
And I'm guessing, Joe, too, the more meaningful that vision and goal is that they're heading towards too, the less you're going to get zombie Scrum.
Zombie Scrum, yeah.
Zombie Scrum going. I could imagine that. I bet there are a fair few zombie Scrum teams out there.
Call it Robo Scrum, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I could imagine that for sure. Joe, step number 5 you mentioned down the track a little bit, which is number 5 is the vision, you know, and I'm keen to understand that. I've got some assumptions and thoughts on it too, because I think, yeah, okay, that's a great place to have it. But do you mind explaining vision there from your point of view, step number 5, then starting to think about vision?
Well, so that step, which is really like driving the entire initiative, it's like, you know, there could be a natural transformation, right? So that is obviously very, very big, and it could be separated into different streams where you would say, well, bringing business agility first to a department, let's say. So that would be that 4th step. in a department XYZ, but the vision is still not accomplished, right? Because all we did is introduce business agility in a department. Now, the beauty of Agile, which is always about value, is to identify where can we, push the needle the furthest, right? Which department would benefit the most of it? So why would we not tackle that first, right? So we cannot take the entire organization in one step towards agility, but we can identify which department would be benefit most. Maybe product development, if it's an IT organization, maybe some form of products they're creating, like there's certain opportunities there. So the vision is big, and it might actually sound like it's impossible to reach, but it gives us direction, and it also helps us to then, when we're breaking it down into steps we want to tackle in those 4 steps we talked about, gives us some form of direction. So these goals should be broken down.
Yeah, that's great. And Joe, please correct me if I'm off course with this. Is the vision number 5 because you want teams to start to understand the kata before then actually think, okay, so what's the vision with this? So step 1, 2, 3, 4, they're actually starting to do the kata. And then step 5 is, okay, now that I'm starting to do the kata, I can set that longer term vision.
That's right.
Is that the reasoning for it?
The reason is that some organizations have a longer term vision that is so far out, right? So we have a big goal in agile transformation for a very large organization we're working with. That would not be something we would be doing in 6-9 months.
Yeah.
So that I think I saw a metric come out. It was like roughly 2 years in, companies actually see the initial benefits of an agile transformation. So it does take time. And those are visionary items where we say we want to transform our organizations towards business agility. So the idea is really that we're not losing sight of that, especially for very senior executives. So that there's that's the mission of our undertaking, and the steps and the direction that is supporting that vision, each of those kata, is something we can communicate easier than in an organization. We say we're currently in that stream. We're trying to do this with our kata over here, and I think that's an easier way of communicating within an organization.
Yeah, it's highly effective, isn't it?
Yeah,
Joe,
absolutely.
What do you find are the main things that stop an organization being able to actually really effectively move forward with a agile kata transformation? What do you find were one of the 2 of the key challenges?
Well, there's one that says, there's 2 use cases came out of a McKinsey report. So this is not our finding, and one of them is that 75% of the organizations that are attempting an agile transformation are failing. They're failing to achieve their goals. So that is a metric. If you just think about that 3 out of 4 projects, like let's just say like you're building products, and you would say 3 out of 4 will not be successful. I don't think an organization would tolerate that. But for whatever reason, in an agile transformation, we do, because this has been going on for a long, long time. So the Agile Kata really addresses this problem and say, like, maybe the waterfall approach to rolling out agile transformations is why we're failing. Is that the reason why? So the Agile Kata is trying to tackle that kind of issue just by its source. The other thing is that when asked these companies, what is the reason why we're failing? What are you struggling the most? 48, so almost every other company says the biggest challenge, the number 1 challenge is cultural change.
Yeah.
So changing the culture in it, and it's also ironic in traditional ways of building things, is that we're going through these waves to transform an agile organization towards agility, but we're using a waterfall process, and we're expecting that in 3 years from now, when this project is coming to an end, that the culture is agile. Like this is really silly, right? So how could the culture is not the result of the transformation. It is being lived by during the transformation. So in terms of the challenges is, and so it's not like I'm signing this a checkbox and say, please take my company to agile. It's hard work. It's using the in our case, the Agile Kata for it, but it's also It provides contact points for leadership. It provides business to come in and basically steer that culture already while we're transforming. And I think that's key, because employees that are building products within an organization, seeing that there is an initiative going on for an agile transformation, and they're seeing instantly that the leadership style is changing, they're like, we believe in this. They're serious about this. But if the leadership style is not changing, I think there's a lack of trust.
Yeah, and it's powerful, isn't it? Like it does. The leadership shadow is there, isn't it? Like, of course, cultures and some of all behaviors, and
that's right.
But the leadership shadow is massive. Joe, I see some organizations now where the leadership are actually making transparent, their Scrum boards or performance boards, and they're actually demonstrating transparency on what they do. How effective do you find that when leadership start walking the talk too in that regard?
Using the tools agile teams would be using? Absolutely. That's the change we want to take leadership and business through. We want to use storyboards. We want to be very transparent within an organization, and that's exactly what we want to do. Is that we want to have a board for leadership, right? Let's say we're going through some form of kata that it impacts the leadership, and actually have leadership actually work on the same tools and media as we would expecting teams to work. So that's a key element. So we want to utilize the same tools and bring them in, and Kanban, and we're borrowing ideas from Scrum, but the idea is that the engine of a kata drives us.
That's great. That's great, Joe. You definitely have that behavior shift starting to be seen and adopted from all levels. Yeah. And I love your approach with the kata too, because I think everyone knows culture change is difficult. And I'm guessing there'll be parts of the journey where you get to that next goal faster because it's a really hot period, but there might be times where there's challenges going on and all sorts of dramas and problems that are hitting a company, just like through COVID and things like that, where it slows down a little bit, and so thinking of the wave situation with culture change, it's just you can't do it.
Yeah, but it's also, you can learn while executing a kata, let's say within an area where maybe teams or employees are very open to that kind of cultural change. Maybe they have come from another company where they have experienced something like that before, and they feel relieved that it's happening. And then some other teams might need a little bit longer. So it's like, that's another thing we found, is like every team gets a coach for 6 weeks. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? It's like some teams need a coach longer, some teams need a coach shorter, like these numbers, that they are all indicators for waterfall thinking, right? So we need to adjust the approach while we're working, and the kata is just a perfect tool for us to steer that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I don't know, when I watch my boy doing karate, he's not under a time boxed wave to go from white belt to yellow belt. And then he's not under a time box wave to get to green belt. It's when he's ready for it that he'll go into that next kata, and I think that applies to every martial art type approach, doesn't it? In a lot of sport. Joe, what would be your enterprise excellence 2-minute tip in this area of agile kata? If you had 2 minutes to just explain someone and give someone a tip in this topic of agile kata, what would you say to them?
I do think that probably it would be around the cultural change we just talked about, right? I think that is the challenge is for teams that are possibly already trained, let's say, in a process like Scrum, and they are in possibly building products, let's say IT or not, doesn't matter, but let's say they're using Scrum for that. Now we teach them what self-management, what self-organization is. We teach them how empowered they are. We teach them Scrum values. We teach them all of those things, like how they group and rally together as a team. And then they're operating in an organization where, and I do have to say that too, like in Scrum, teams have every 2 weeks an opportunity to reflect, for example, in a retrospective. Obviously, they could do that more often if they want, but every 2 weeks have this reminder, it's like, it's time to reflect on our process. And some of those things they talk about in these so-called retrospectives, and say like, hey, what could we change? What could we improve? Some of those things are things that need to change within the organization and where they have little control over. They say like, we just wish XYZ would be different so that we could be more productive. Now, if they're seeing that the organization, that they're raising these issues and they're very open and transparent in doing that, which we should all applaud, right? But if they're seeing that the rest of the organization is not following through on those, that is a huge trust issue between the teams and the rest of the organization, right? So it's like, we're teaching, we're telling them, they're reading books about Scrum and this is how a real Scrum is. And then they're looking at the organizations, they're like, I can't really change these things in my company, right? We're like, well, we'll just Scrum on the team level, not on an organizational level. And I think that's the cultural change I would invite everybody to try. So my tip would be, start a kata, try it. Go to agilekata.org, take a look at the white paper. It's not very deep and thorough, but that's the idea. It should stimulate. I'm also can share a link for an Agile Kata walkthrough. It's just being explained on a video style. Think about it, see how you can implement that. Take an Agile coach you might have in your organization or bring one in to help you, guide you through an Agile Kata. See how it feels and possibly take an item from a team's retrospective. I'm sure there are some improvement ideas you can collect from the teams. And then basically just take one of those and says, I'm going to run a kata using that improvement idea that comes from a team and actually see if I can make progress on that in my organization. Now, if that happens, there will be smiling faces on the teams. And they will be like, we just raised an impediment, we raised an issue, a challenge within our organization. And leadership and business took care of it using something called an Agile Kata. Now we have created a journey between the different kind of departments, and I think trust emerges as a result of that.
Joe, that's brilliant. You've touched on a topic I hear so much because I'm out there in a lot of companies too myself, and I think that one question you ask a team, which is, what happened last time you had an impediment or a challenge?
Yeah.
And they go, oh, I sent it up and I heard nothing and it got lost.
Yes.
That's just, they're not happy. This is bad. But then when you ask them that and they say, yeah, we took it to our board and we tried to execute it and we couldn't get past it, but we've escalated it and it's been dealt with, or even it's been escalated and I heard back that it can't be handled and why. They're happy. Mm-hmm. It's that one question it defines a lot in culture at the front line, in my view.
Absolutely.
Massive, isn't it?
Well, just imagine leadership or a leadership team, depending on the size of the organization, would come back and report back to the team how they accomplished. Totally different cultural mindset, right? In terms of how do we interact within an organization. So there's a lot of things we can improve going towards agility, and the Agile Kata, in my opinion, can very well help. It can help with transformations. It can help with these kind of improvement ideas, which I just talked about. And that's another thing we just learned, that also some companies actually start using Agile Kata for actually building products. So it's not only for transformational work. So the sky's the limit. I'm learning still every day, get some feedback from people who are using it and says, I found something interesting and that could be done with the Agile Kata. So I'm welcoming all ideas.
Yeah, it's awesome. It is, it's very new, isn't it, Joe? Like I mentioned, when Deandra connected us, I was like, wow, okay, this is going to be a good conversation. It has been. Thank you so much, mate. Joe, what's been a recent insight for you? What's been a recent learning for you? Sort of set you back a bit.
Well, very recent, as recent as 2 days ago. I had the honor to hear from Joe Justice, who is a Scrum trainer, but also the creator of WikiSpeed, which is an electric car he built, a race car. And he was also the transformation lead at Tesla up to 2020. And he said if he did return to Tesla, he would recommend Agile Kata.
Wow.
So that coming from him, but the Agile Kata wasn't out at that time when he was at Tesla. He's not with Tesla. I don't think he has plans of going back, but he's working with other car manufacturers in Germany. So I'm pretty sure that the Agile Kata finds its way into some of those organizations one way or the other.
Yeah, that's neat, Joe. And I can understand why he's made that statement too. So that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Mate, how can people reach out to you if they want to learn more, connect in? What's the best approach that they take?
Probably the best one would be just coming to the website of INCREMENTOR.com or sending me an email. Maybe we could share that it's at J Krebs, Krebs, at INCREMENTOR.com to send me an email. I think that's probably the easiest. If it takes me a few days to respond, that might happen, right? There's also on the website there's ways of getting in touch, or LinkedIn and social media like this. So look me up, send me a quick text message. And, as I said, there is help in all this. If what you're listening right now sounds intriguing to you and you were like, let me explore, there is help, right? So it's not like you have to come up with these things on your own. But we certainly made the material public, so you can try it on your own, but there's also help where you can reach out to us.
Yeah, Joe, that's awesome, mate. And Joe, thanks so much for everything you have done and will do going forward, mate, to help us create a better future, mate. Thanks for your time and knowledge. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brad, for putting this podcast together. What kind of service you're providing to the world with broadcasts like this. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe. We'll catch up soon, mate. What a great episode. Remember, you can visit our website, enterpriseexcellencepodcast.com, to find show notes and links to Joe's website and white papers. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast to help others gain insights and create a better future. There were 2 key takeaways for me from this episode. 1, avoid the wave approach. Focus on the kata and capability formation. Culture change is the ultimate goal with any transformation. Joe's approach of leading the transformation with a focus on short-term kata goals rather than time-block waves of deployment is amazing. It is ultimately what every organization wants, helping people form new skills and improve in a sustainable way. Not every team is the same. Some will move faster through the kata, others slower. It's just like with people learning karate. There may be times teams and the organization move faster and then slower also due to impacting forces. The second key takeaway for me was focus on the challenging goals, understand your current state, set the next short-term challenging goal and experiment towards this. This kata approach focuses the effort on the ultimate element we are looking for: forward progress, challenge removal, and goal achievement. This thinking helps eliminate teams doing work for the sake of work. It helps them hone in on what is truly important and achieve it: forward progress and making things better to create a better future. Agile and the Toyota Kata are 2 of the most influential learnings in my life. Joe has brought these together beautifully in his way with Agile Kata. Thanks again for your time and knowledge, Joe. Thanks for helping us create a better future. Bye for now.